Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of The Round Up. What's up? What's up? I got
Hey
Hey,
my
guys, what's
buddies
up?
with
hey
me,
y'all,
Tamara, Rissa, Levi.
Hey,
How you guys doing today?
doing
Doing
good. How
good.
are
good,
you?
good. We blessed, man, for sure.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. So today we were going to talk about the generational. I'm sorry, not the generational, but the racial wealth gap in America, and we want to talk about the causes of it and how what we can do to try to fix it and what we can do to try to make it better for ourselves. Um, and all that jazz. So first we wanted to talk about, just what caused the generational the racial wealth gap. We if you been around, we've all been around long enough to know that slavery existed in America. And really a lot of the things that stemmed from slavery helped to cause there to be a racial wealth gap in this country.
Mhm.
Um, with certain systemic laws and systemic practices that happened, um, people of color were not able to obtain wealth at the rate that certain families of non-color were able to. White families, basically. Um, we're reading. There's some information on a page that we have here called the it's the Federal Reserve's page. um, it talks specifically about some surveys that came and showing how the wealth gap has gotten so big. So I'm going to read a passage from this. Um, New data from the 2019 Survey of Consumer Finances showed that longstanding and substantial wealth disparities between families and different racial and ethnic groups were little changed since the last survey of 2016. The typical white family has 8 times the wealth of the typical black family and
Oh,
5 times the wealth of the typical Hispanic family. Isn't that crazy?
that is horrible.
Yes,
That's a
I
Goodness.
think
lot.
about that. I'm like,
those
how
numbers
could
are
it have gotten so
drastically
bad?
different.
Big
Wow.
You're at
difference.
8 times the
Yeah,
numbers.
that's a lot.
Um, the Fed's this page explores patterns in wealth holding by race and ethnicity, as well as some key issues related to the accumulation of wealth, using new data from the 2019 survey of consumer finances. They analyzed total wealth among families classified according to their self-identification during the interview as white, non-Hispanic, black or African American non-Hispanic, Hispanic or Latino, and other or multi-race. Wealth is defined in this survey. Is defined as the difference between families' gross assets and their liabilities, and the this page will describe patterns at the median. So basically, this page was just talking about what the wealth gap was, what caused it, and why or how the money has gotten to be so much better, or the gap has been so much larger between white families and all other races. Um, One of the things it said in 2019, white families have the highest level of both median and mean family wealth. um, black Black and Hispanic families have considerably less wealth than white families. Black families' median and mean wealth is less than 15% that of white families at 24 24,000 and 142,000 respectively. Sorry, I'm me and my reading numbers is crazy, but anyway, Hispanic families' median and mean wealth is 36,000 and 165,000 respectively. And other families of diverse groups that include Asian, American Indian, Alaska Native, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, other races, and all other respondents reporting more than one racial identification have lower wealth than white families, but higher wealth than Black and Hispanic families. To me, it's just crazy. Like I'm trying to figure out, what do you guys think about that? What are your thoughts on how that could have happened, or what could have caused that?
I mean,
You
for
have
me,
any?
it's simple. It starts at the beginning. We have to understand what a lot of people forget is that land was not made for the other two demographics. It was made for um, Caucasian demographics. And,
Right.
when you have that establishment, like you're the first to do something, it's going to be very hard to kind of break that thing. And I think um, a lot of times, especially like in our community, um, entrepreneurship and things of that nature, it's getting pushed more now, but it wasn't as much like when I was in high school and things of that nature. But I know like in Caucasian families, like it's everything. You know, you're going to great grandpa, he established this auto shop back in 1920. You're going to take it over one day, and it just continues to go and go and go. And you know, because of the treatment and discrimination and things of that nature, we have a step back.
And also too, Terrence, you kept saying, I know you were not trying to say this word, but you kept saying generational. And that,
Yeah, I meant to say racial. My bad.
right, but that word
plays
generational plays a key part
True.
in why our community, I think, suffers, in that way. You have one aspect where, like what Levi said, this nation land was not, made for us to dominate. It just wasn't. And then on the other aspect, you have that generational, history of us this not having the knowledge on how to obtain wealth and go
Yes.
forward in it, and give it to our kids and our kids' kids and so on and so forth. So that plays a key part too. And I really honestly believe that with our race, and some others too, but predominantly our race, because we don't have much, like, wealth runs deep. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's not
definitely.
just I got a couple of stacks in the bank. Wealth runs deep, and we a lot of times don't experience that. So when we do get a little something, we become flashy with it. You know what I mean? We become
Right.
flashy with it, and I believe that's a part of that generational curse too, that that we display in our actions. Not all, but some. But yeah, I think that generational thing plays a big part in it as well.
Yeah. And I was just going to say too, like, just wanted to expound off the having financial literacy in and of itself, because, I think that going back a few generations, we got the saving part down, because, like some people, you hear grandpa, oh, they would put money in a mattress or put money somewhere else, but they didn't have the right tools to make the money that they had grow without you trying to do stuff to it. You know what I mean? It was just
True.
always like saving and saving until you die. And you can't save your way to real wealth. You have to invest, you have to take risks, you have to, you know what I'm saying? So they didn't have that part either. And then like you said, Tamara, as soon for a lot of people, because we're so used to not having things, when you finally pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, you want to enjoy some things, and then you take it too far. So it doesn't go beyond a certain point with a lot of people. And then not to mention the whole student loan gap. A lot of people in our families, especially back several generations, they think that when you're 18, you're grown. You got to go and fend for yourself. And you're still a child. I'm sorry, you're broke at 18, and a lot of other families push their children, stay home, pay off your debt, save to buy a house, go
We don't
forward.
do that.
So,
Yeah.
they go into, and sometimes even some of them even get married and still stay at home until both of them are set, until they're able to go out and they're completely debt free. You know what I mean? So a lot of our families don't do that. Or like when you get a job, you immediately got to help out and pay bills.
Yes.
It doesn't go beyond, okay, no, I'm gonna let my child stay home so they can get their stuff together so they can go out into the world and not fall flat on their faces. Not saying that we all do that, but you still, when you don't have a sounding board into being able to be financially independent, you're still trying to play catch up for the majority of your life.
Yeah. And that thing where Marissa, you were talking about how, when you immediately get a job, you have to now help out with the, bills of the home that you're in. Your parents don't, let you keep that to save. I don't think it's just because, oh, we want your money. It's because they're in a situation where
Yep.
two, they, they need help
They need help.
with running a home,
Right.
Yeah.
because
Right.
the more hands that can work, that means the more the home can run in a functional way. So
Right.
it man, that thing runs deep, but it's
It
It
definitely
does
does.
run
something
deep.
to go
So I
through.
wanted to talk. That's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about a little bit of the history. So this is from the Cleveland Federal Reserve's website. Um, they were talking about the racial wealth gap, and then one of the spots or one of the paragraphs in here is highlighting the history of racial income and wealth gaps. They say the current racial wealth gap is the consequence of many decades of racial inequality that imposed barriers to wealth accumulation, either through
Absolutely.
explicit prohibition during slavery or unequal treatment after emancipation. Examples of post emancipation barriers include legally mandated segregation in schools and housing, discrimination in the labor market, and redlining, which reduce access to capital in Black neighborhoods. That's a
Yes.
big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big thing because I
Redlining still happens today, though, doesn't it?
it still happens. Well, no,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
not
they,
to say
I
it
think no,
does.
I think they did make laws to try to prohibit that, but some people try to work around that
Yeah, they
and
do. It
all
still
that stuff. But
happens.
but it's crazy because I have a I you talk to some friends and from other races, and they'll be like, my family did this, we built this up from the ground, they worked hard and they did that and the other, and they don't understand why families of color can't just do what they're supposed to do when there's a
Right.
history of
Right.
people trying to I mean, a lot of families in the old days, you know back even probably before my parents, and then even to the time my parents were born, we're not able to go to the bank and just get money from the bank. And
Correct.
there are
Correct.
people in certain neighborhoods, certain demographics, white people who have been able to go and just go to the bank and get money back, back in the times where it was, civil rights was a big issue. I mean, civil rights is
Right.
still kind of an issue now, but the civil rights movement back in the 1940s, 50s, 60s,
Yeah.
all that stuff. And the black family still hasn't recovered from that. You have
Yeah.
you have um, white families who over time have been able to build wealth in their families just from having a home that they could buy, and that home making accumulating, appreciating, the values of those homes appreciating, and you keep that home in the family. Like even here in New York, some of those houses that when they were first built, they were like in the thousands, and now they're worth millions, and they just kept it in the family, and all that wealth goes into goes into their family, and they can pass it on to their children.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people outside of the black race or color, people of color understand that discrepancy. I mean, redlining to me is crazy. I mean, you kept certain people on a certain side of the track,
Yep.
and kept black people on a certain side of the track, and you kept the banks wouldn't allow them to get loans. The banks would give them loans with crazy interest if they
Yep.
did allow them loans, and the people who were on the other side of the tracks were getting loans that had no interest or very low interest rates, and they were given money freely to be able to help build up their family restaurant or their family, whatever family project they were trying to do. And
Yeah.
that's what helped to cause the wealth gap to go so different. They continue
Right.
to say, um, while the existence of the wealth gap may may not be altogether surprising, it may be surprising how little the racial wealth gap has changed over the past century, even after the passage of the civil rights. In fact, the wealth gap in 2016 is roughly the same as it was in 1962, 2 years
Mm.
before the passage of the civil rights in 1964, according to the data from the survey of consumer finances. Now, this is the Cleveland Fed's website talking about the same survey that was on the Federal Reserve's website. So both of them are kind of corroborating this evidence here. The
Right.
average white wealth in 1962 was 7 times that of the average black wealth. Remember, they were saying in the other page it was 8 times, so it's
8 times.
pretty much the same. The
Right.
Yeah.
persistence of the racial wealth gap can be, they give a graph as well, and I'll try to add that. the graph basically plots the distribution of wealth in 2016 in dollars for Black and white households in the years 1962 and 2016. And the graph is, it shows how parallel the lines are. Basically, they're growing. The amount of money that people are getting is growing, but the gap is still there. There's no
Exactly.
Yeah.
real change in the
Yes.
wealth gap.
Mm.
Um, so simply put, over the last 50 years, the distribution of Black wealth has not even caught up to the distribution of white wealth in 1962. So basically, the amount is going up, but the amount of money that Black people make in media, the average amount that Black people make is just catching up to what the average amount white people made in 1962. The average
Exactly.
amount of Black people make. This survey was in 2016, but the average amount that Black people made in 2016 was just catching up to the average amount that white people made in 1962, almost over 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So
It's
it's just
crazy.
crazy. I mean, can y'all? I mean, this it's crazy to me.
It blows my mind hearing it, but I'm not surprised. You know what I mean? Like the
Not
fact
surprised.
that I mean, and it's just so much, and I think people really don't understand. Like, if that's the gap now, and thinking about when our ancestors were slaves, like being able to read and write alone was punishable, by death.
Yep.
Like you could
Thank
die.
you.
Like they hid that from. They were scared, and like those who could read wouldn't tell anybody. So you know what I'm saying. So
No,
just
Marissa, you're
that,
just not working hard enough.
just
And
that
that's what they
basic
say.
alone.
That's truly
Yeah.
what they believe. Let me
That's
tell
what I'm
you,
saying.
that
And I
is
even
the
just like,
stereotypical point that people have of Black people who live in ghettos. Who
yes.
it's ridiculous. It's
And
ridiculous
let
to
me
me.
tell you all this. Oh my, this really still blew my mind because I believe this was like a couple of years ago. I was reading this article where it was a Black woman who was married to a white man, and so they were selling their home and they were getting their home appraised, and it was pictures of her family, his family, all together, and they gave them a price, right? So then I honestly hate the fact that I had to do this, but I had to make sure. So they completely redid their home. She's Black, and she took all of her pictures of her family out, and then if she replaced like it had it staged to the point where it was just her husband's family. Got it appraised again, and it was appraised at least I think like $140,000 more than what the original price that they got, all because she removed essence that she lived there. Like
It's
you
crazy.
can't tell me, like, and that's what's they call that predatory lending. Same with student loans. Like, we were so, especially with our group, like we were the ones where they really pushed college on us when we
Yes.
really didn't have a lot to go by,
Right.
and
Yeah.
your parents probably didn't save or start, whatever for you. And all you had was student loans, especially if your grades weren't up to par to get a lot of scholarships. And I know a girl she had like a high, like 3.8 GPA and I don't think she had a lot of offers at all. So, and so like for scholarships to go full ride. And it's just like, how does that happen? Because they always tell you that. But that predatory lending really hit us hard because we
Yeah.
were so inundated with you got to do better, you got to do, we want you to go to college, we want you to do this, and you just take out all of these loans that you may not be ever to pay them back, and if you do, you really gonna have to grind to get them paid off. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Yeah.
and a lot of our white counterparts, they probably have student loans, and probably some of them probably have a lot too, but there's still that percentage out there that are they're debt free as far as student loans go, or they had grandma and grandpa were able to pay for their school, or mom and dad were able to pay for their whole undergrad because they prepared years ago. You know what I mean? So it's just a drastic difference.
It
It's a
is a
drastic
difference, and it's I don't want to keep beating on the dead horse, but I mean it's something to think about when people are so quick to assume that you
Yeah.
know Black people aren't doing what their due diligence to try to get out of being the wealth gap being so low. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't. The numbers don't lie. The numbers don't
No.
lie. You're statistically making 8 times. I mean, white people are statistically making 8 times more than the average white person is statistically making 8 times more than the average black family or black
Yeah.
person. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
Another
we
thing that
And
just
they
want to
talked
work
racial.
about.
three.
And,
We just want to work 3 jobs to take care of our kids. Yeah,
Right.
right.
that's the life. That's just what we want. Yeah,
Right.
And I know
No.
there are some whoever's watching this. There are some white families that are poor too. We're not just
100%.
discrediting
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
you, but the numbers still don't lie. The average white family makes more than the
Correct.
average white family makes more than the average black family, and so I
Correct.
mean, it's just what it is. Um, this is another thing that they talked about on the Cleveland Federal Reserve's page. The wealth gap might simply be the result of a historical wealth gap that was so large it hasn't yet had time to close. As we have seen from the 1962 data, black households were much poorer than white households at that time. Even if all racial discrimination had ended in the 1960s, these wealth differences would not have disappeared instantly. Wealth takes time to accumulate, which that's what we're adding to. That's what we're
Right.
really trying to do. We understand that it takes time, but people
Right.
have to come to the realization that things don't happen overnight,
Right.
and
Right.
it,
And we
it
didn't
just
have the
it
same
just
amount of
takes time.
time that they did.
Right.
We're just catching up.
To continue, it says, however, it is possible that other factors have kept the wealth levels of blacks and whites from converging, and researchers have investigated the influence of several of these. Specifically, the possible obstacles to wealth equalization that have been studied are savings rates, inheritances, rates of returns on investments, and income. If blacks and whites differ on any of these dimensions, it could explain the persistence of the wealth gap. And we already
Yes.
know that and a lot of times minorities make less than their white counterpart their white male counterparts, really.
Mhm.
Even
Yeah,
when it comes to just being a woman, white women make less than white men. There's a lot of minority disparities between you know how people, white men, will make more money anyway. We already know that. It's been talked
Yeah.
about so many times. It's not something that we are really focusing on here, but also talking about the inheritances. We talked about that earlier, right? Like, I can't. I haven't talked to my parents about this. I don't think. I don't think. I can't say for sure. This is me thinking. I don't think that my parents got an inheritance from their parents, and I don't think my parents got an inheritance from their parents.
Right.
And there's a lot of families that when you think about that generational, when Tamara was talking about this, because I think that's too why I kept mixing the two up or conflating the two, the racial wealth gap, generational wealth gap, they're kind of one and the same.
They are.
Yeah.
When you think about the
yeah,
fact that over generations, this is over generations that, white people, their money has accumulated over time, and black people, their money is accumulating, but it's there's just a
slower rate.
gap in it.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just how it is. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I want to go back to when you were talking about how minorities don't make as much as like the white male. Just a little brief, situation that I had at my previous job. I fought very hard for my salary.
Mm.
I knew the work that I was doing. I knew what, it took. I understand what my pay needed to be, and they weren't trying to do it. But I fought. You know what I'm saying? I fought hard. And just being a black woman in this market, it's hard. It's hard because you know that you can have 5+ years of experience on top of a new candidate, but if they come in, they're making more than you.
Yeah.
Just because of now, just because of their skin color, and where they came from or what have you, they'll make more than you coming in, and you've been there 8-10 years. You know what I mean? So I just, with that situation, I know firsthand that you have to fight for
You do.
what you're
Yes, you
worth.
do.
You
Yep.
just do. And some companies, like I had a manager who she, you know, she understood. Um, and she fought with me. But then when the manager thing situation switched, they were not trying to hear that, and they were trying to demote my pay. I'm like, what? You know, like, no. And I
Yeah.
fought for what I was worth. That's just it. And I'm not gonna take, you know, no for an answer. Because and you'll and like the ones who are watching who have not had experience, maybe you're younger or you haven't been in the, you know, working field for a while, but you will see, just as a black, for me as a black woman, I really have to go hard for what I'm worth, because
Yeah.
they won't recognize that. And
Yeah.
I have come to my own realization, like, oh, they're not for you. Like, they're not going to fight for you. You have to do this by yourself.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I know to be true with, you know, in the working field. There's going to be a lot of people, because they don't match your skin tone, they're
100%.
opposite of your skin tone, they're gonna go up quick, and you'll be
Yeah.
right there. You have to
Yeah.
fight. You have to fight for and know your worth. That's so.
I agree. And
I
I can
agree
also
too.
attest to that. I can attest that happened to me too.
That same thing
Um,
happened to me as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Right.
and this is just really quick. I started working at my old job about a year before this other girl came in. I transferred to that unit, or that area, I should say, about a year after her. So she was there for a year. I just got there, but I had already been there for a year somewhere else. And we had a manager who ended up leaving. She got the job. So I was like, oh, okay. So when she had the medical side and there was a behavioral health side. Having behavioral health experience, I went in and same thing. And I'm pretty sure they ended up, offering, asking her the same interview questions. She was an Asian girl though. And so she got it. So I'm like, okay, well, if she can do it, I know I got this in the bag.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And had a white manager, like the manager over the supervisors, I should say. And she was in my interview. So I'm like, okay, great. This is gonna be great. And then I got an excuse, a lame excuse at that, of why I wasn't able, or why I didn't fit that position.
Mm-hmm.
And here the real reason why is because she already had one of her buddies already posted for the job. That's really what was happening. And she was white.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
it happens. It happens. And I'm like,
It happens a lot.
So
We
on
don't have
my
to
first
do.
experience was my first ever job that I ever had. It was at a car wash place called Autobell. And if you guys are watching this, hey, it is what it is. It's
Mhm.
the truth. It is. Me and my best friend D, we both worked there, and we wash cars very well. Let me tell you, very, very well. But there were some people who came in after us who looked different. They were white
Mhm.
guys or whatever, and they became friends with the other white managers. But me and my best friend, we the only two black dudes, right? We wash cars better than them. The customers said that we wash cars better than them, right?
Mhm.
But when it came time to get promoted, every single time they would choose someone else over
yeah,
us to promote us. Oh, even though we had been there longer.
See?
yeah,
So what me and D decided to do was we just went and we had to go and take, so that when you got promotions, they would give you a different color shirt, signifying that you are more experienced or you're like a level above or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What we had to do, we just went in the closet and we just took our own shirts and just put them on. And our manager, he never said anything about it. Never said, okay, we're promoting these guys in front of the group in the meeting like everyone else. You know what I mean? So that's how we had to come on to get our our promotion.
You gotta take it
And
by
to me,
force.
exactly, and by force. Like, why should it be that way? You see the work,
Right.
you've acknowledged the work. It came to
exactly.
the point that the people who were working with us, they wanted us to wash their cars. They wouldn't even want to wash their own car
Right.
because of how
Because
well
they
we were doing our
knew.
work. So if you
They
can
knew.
acknowledge it there, why can't you acknowledge it in front of everybody? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
make it a established thing. So
Right.
if you're
Yeah.
watching, it is what it is, but it's the truth. You know what
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, and you can't discredit it either. Like, it happens in your pay, it happens in being able to be promoted or not, and
Right.
even in the hiring phase. Like, you know how they always talk about, oh, well, if you have an obviously Black name, chances are your application is going to get thrown out. You know what I'm saying? Like, all those kind of things work against you.
Yeah.
Sad.
Do you guys feel like there's anything that can be done to help close it? I mean, what do you think should be done or could be done to help close the wealth gap?
I
Like,
think
oh, go ahead, boo.
no,
Go
no,
ahead.
you go ahead. You're fine.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna be real quick. Like what I said on the last video, it's about the other cultures, or I'm sorry, the other races knowing the issue. That honestly, listen, we have a lot of how can I say this nice? We have a lot of naive white people out here who, they go by media, they go by stereotypes, and that's how they form their decision on our culture, our race. If they really understood the history behind it, what's going on now, I really feel like them having knowledge of the truth, that would like solve a lot of these issues
Yeah.
that we have to go through. Whites versus blacks, whites versus minorities. Like if they just understood and they knew, then I feel like it would change.
And
I really
cared.
do. Yeah, I do. I
Yeah,
really
I
feel
think
like
if people actually cared, things would change. But I wonder if people will care. I think some people. I don't think a lot of people are really ignorant. I think that a lot of people. I shouldn't say a lot of people. I feel like there are those who are there who are in certain areas or certain areas of power who they don't want it to change. I mean, it's changed for
Mm-hmm.
you said
anybody.
they don't want to what?
They don't want it to change. They don't want
Right.
the like
Right.
look at how things changed with, and this wasn't even a racial thing, but look at how things happened with the Robinhood issue that happened. I don't know, ladies, if you know a lot about it, but me and Levi, we're in a big stock group, right? And if you guys aren't familiar with what happened, this is basically what happened. There was
Oh, wait a
a
minute, you talking about the Robinhood app?
Yeah.
yeah, the
I
Robinhood
have
app.
that. I have stock in that. What happened?
Levi can probably tell it better than me. Go
All
ahead,
right,
Levi.
Yeah,
so
Adrian
this
does
is
too.
this
He
is
can
what
tell.
this is what happened, right? So I'm in another group. It's called Wall Street Bet. So it's a Reddit group as well, right? So
Mhm.
they decided to challenge another investment group that basically was betting on a certain company to fail, and they were going to make money off of it. This other group, they said, "Oh no, you're not going to do that. Okay, we're done with you guys bullying us." So they posted to social media. They got some backing by a big name like Elon Musk and things of that nature. And basically, what happened is because the other people they were betting on the business to fail or the stock to fail, it started doing so well they were losing money. So in simple terms, the more it went up, the more money they were losing. So what
Okay.
happened was,
Okay.
and come to find out is Robinhood is partially owned by the people who were losing money, right? So
Okay.
the people who were
Uh,
manipulating Wall Street all the time, they come to find out they own a portion of them. So what happened was is that eventually they shut down you being able to buy the stocks that were going up. All right. Which that is a practice that Robinhood does all the time. Like I have experience with the app. One of the reasons why I left the app, right? So they do that. But in conjunction with that, right, their app all of a sudden goes down, right? So you can't log into your app. When you open your app back up, what has happened is that the other investment group that has lost money, they have borrowed the stock back and forth, drastically driving down the price of the stock. So that way it's at a low price when you open your app back up and you've lost a lot of money. And they have sold a lot of people shares of the stock that was going up
We will
for
say that was alleged. We can't find that. We will say that was alleged. I haven't seen that.
What's alleged? No, that's happened. I have people who have posted that their
Okay, well,
stock was
good.
short. So no, that's
That's
not
good.
alleged. They sold other people's stock at a much lower cost on their behalf without their consent.
oh
Mm.
wow.
Which
So
was crazy.
which is crazy. You can't. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't sell somebody's house without their consent. You can't sell somebody's car without their consent. It doesn't belong to you. You know what I mean, they use your platform to trade, But at the end of the day, their buying power, it's their money, and they get to decide where they want to sell or not. So they basically took that away from you.
So
Wow.
in that, we're talking about showing how people who have money, who
Power.
try to do certain things, and power, who try to do certain things to keep people who are trying to get to that. Because Robinhood is known as um, the app that helped to bring people who weren't investors, who weren't,
Right.
Mhm.
big time
Right.
stock
I mean, in the
into
name Robin Hood itself, it's taken from the rich and given to the poor.
Get to the
Right.
poor.
right.
Exactly.
And then that happens. So I mean, I
Wow.
feel like at the end of the day, there are people who know better, but they just don't want they don't want it
No,
to happen.
they want to
So
No.
keep the gap the way it is. Rich keep getting richer, and the poor keep getting poorer.
yeah, it's very unfortunate.
One thing I want to say, like, I always try to put myself in the other person's position. If we were in a group that was 5 people and every single month we got $12 million, split between 5 people, would we want to continually add 100 more, 15 more, every single time? You know what I mean? I still don't think it's right. You know what I mean? Because when I just feel like when you get to that level, you start to really look within and only about yourself instead of others, and trying to help
Yeah.
others obtain the same thing that you have.
I mean,
And
it's
see,
crazy though when you think about it. Like certain people, if you're making a certain amount of money, I know you get used to that lifestyle, but there are
Mm.
people in this country who don't even make any, like not even a percentage of like five
No.
Yeah.
percent of that, and they
Yeah.
still live and they're good. So it's like
right,
let people allow people to be able to have a life that is comfortable. The people who are learning how to manage their money, the people who are learning how to be responsible with their money, allow them to get where they need to be. There are ways um, they are doing what they're supposed to do to be able to manage their money properly. So what's the problem?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like you look at a lot of the like all of the stuff that we talked about with the taxes, not taxes, we haven't talked about that, but with them putting things in place to keep people in a place where they can't accumulate wealth, certain taxes, certain um, uh, legal processes that are in place that keep people from being able to accumulate wealth. It's mind
Yeah.
boggling to think about it. I think
yeah,
about here. I try not to say it, but I live here in New York. I moved from VA, and to me, when I moved here, we pay a city tax. We pay a city tax on top of the state tax and the federal taxes that we pay. And it's like, where does all this money go? There's really, honestly,
Exactly.
to me, it's like
mhm,
there's no
Yeah.
forward advancement with the money that we pay out of our pockets for New York. For me, it's every
Yeah.
paycheck, and it's
It,
like,
is it
And
what
see
is
what
it? I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go, Marissa.
no, I'm saying that's the thing. Like, and then like when in the powers that be that make this the way it is, it's like people like us who are like just breaking into the middle class. We're the ones who get stomped on. You know what I mean? Like
right.
you make just enough over to not get assistance, but then you don't make enough to get ahead either. You know what I mean? It's
True.
ridiculous.
yeah.
And then like,
Mm.
oh, it is the
Give me,
most frustrating thing.
excuse
Like,
me, Marissa, folks. Cameron, is everything okay?
I knew that was gonna happen.
Is
Yeah,
everything okay, Tam?
yeah. I'm sorry. I was trying to type in our chat. Sorry. Go ahead.
um, One thing I will say is is it wrong to say we should, in monetarily wise, right? Should we just focus on ourselves, only Black people? I mean,
Um.
the only reason why I say this
Yes.
because every other demographic does that. But when it comes to
yes,
our demographic, it's like,
yes.
no, that's not right. You shouldn't.
We're the only ones who do that too. We're the only ones who do it. Like, we're the only ones who check other people. Like, oh well, I'm not gonna. No, pour into your own community.
Yeah.
Like, I have been very conscious, like over the past at least 2 years, to start supporting more of my people
Yeah.
because,
But
and a lot of people
shouldn't our
know
people
that we
become
have
more?
that crabs in the bucket mentality, and
Shouldn't our
that
people
is another.
become
That's
more,
another reason.
more not together, but like when you see these type of, because especially living here in New York, and
Go ahead and say it, Terrence. No, you want to say it? Go ahead and say it. It's
You
real.
know,
Good.
when you look at the Jewish community here in
you.
New York, they are very tight knit, and I
Yep.
don't feel like we have that tight knit. I don't
We
think
don't.
us as a people have that tight knit mentality, and
Yeah.
that's the difference. You know what I'm saying? Like they'll even keep, certain happenings between themselves.
Yeah.
Certain maybe even illegal things that might be happening. Not saying that I've seen anything illegal, but just saying that
They
certain
take
things that
care of their own.
they try to adjudicate within their community and not
Yeah,
bring it
they're
Yeah.
out to.
monopolizing their
Yeah.
own. Yep, you're right.
And it
So,
starts early, right? So you have
Yeah.
a Jewish kid, and hey, this kid is going to be a doctor. It's already established. When you become 12, you're going to go intern with the Sandler family, and you're going to
Huh?
become a doctor. He's going to teach you,
Yeah.
and all that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean, right? So
They
Yeah.
groomed
it
them very young.
exactly.
Yes.
And I think that and it goes back for me, education. We're not really taught that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Education, financial literacy. Hey, you don't have to go work for somebody. Hey, you don't have to go to college and spend
Yes.
$120,000. Go and
Right.
go to a trade. And I,
Hmm.
I I mean they were pushing college really heavy at one point. You know what I mean?
Because they
They
didn't
were
Yeah.
know. They
exactly.
didn't know the debt. They didn't understand that. They just
Exactly.
saw college and equated that to
Money.
money.
Wealth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, we are in debt, man.
yeah, and let me
Lord.
tell you something. My college degree, it might have helped. The one thing I will say, my college degree helped me because I had to have it for the job that I'm in now. But before I got the job that I'm in now, it was at least I got this job in 2015. It was a good. I graduated in 2006. It was almost 10 years before I got the job I'm in now. And it's not
Hmm.
to say I wasn't doing my best or trying my best to get something that would support me and make me feel comfortable,
Yeah.
but um, it takes that time sometimes, and it makes it hard. It makes it hard to really get out of the debt and really to put yourself in a place where you start to accumulate the wealth that we talk about, where you can close that gap and you can be
Yeah.
that median family where you're, you know, closer to the gap that the amount of money that white people make. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not that, and I don't want us to come off as sounding like we're mad
Or
or
it's a white or
that
black
we're
issue.
like
Right. It's not. That's just
Yeah.
something that
oh,
we
and
were
just talking
unfortunately
about
came into. So.
right, just talking about the realness of it is a real thing. It's
Right.
something that happens.
It's
Don't
real.
like
Yeah.
Man, I'm
And
dead. I'm
see,
mad.
so
So
that happened so many years
but see,
ago.
that's what I'm
Oh,
saying. Like,
oh, that happened so many years ago, so you guys should be over it. No, that's not.
right, and it's
That's
not.
not right,
And
man.
we're still recuperating. But see, that's one thing for me specifically, because and I'm just gonna say this, I don't have the mind to own a business. I have never
Mm.
desired to do that.
Me either.
Yeah.
It's just not in my DNA. I'm just it's not. But I found something, and I will always credit this to my daddy, because he, like, if I was probably in ninth grade all of maybe 2 weeks, and he was like, look, this is the time of your life, but and I know you want to do this, and all you worried about is your social life, but you need to start looking about what you want to do. And he was like, look, if it's college, if it's a trade, it doesn't matter. You need to figure out what you want to do with your life when you walk across that stage. So, and I was like, that's years away. But I'm thankful for that, because I did ended up, and like with that, and through my best friend, because we had plans, but she left me. But but I found a degree that I actually started working in and thriving in. So for me, it took me a while to get it, but once I started, I've never left it. And it's something that I really love to do. And I didn't have a plan B. And I didn't. So I'm thankful to God that it worked out. But, and that was the one thing, like, when my dad was always saying, like, if you're going to do this, don't get no degree and not use it. So,
Very
I
true.
just thankful for my dad for saying that. Saying
amen.
that.
Very, very
That's
true.
that's good teaching. All
It
right,
is
y'all.
good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so I mean, what I think, like, we've talked about a good amount of stuff. We just really wanted to bring it to attention, to bring it out so that we talk about it, because it's something that affects us. Um,
Yes.
I, I feel that I was looking over trying to see what some conclusions were for us there are many different things people were saying on all the different sites that I looked up. It's really just, they're trying to come up with some policies to help um, further this along or to help bring the gap closer. One thing that Marissa was talking about, tell us what you were talking about earlier, Marissa.
Well, I was reading that President Biden was, in addition to canceling some student loan debt, because I know there were talks of like 10,000, 30,000, whatever. There was an article that I was reading that said, this is alleged, but it said that, he was going to further target people who went to HBCUs to to really gather a lot of the population that falls within the African American community to help bridge the gap.
That's interesting. And there were some other policies and things they were talking about. So they're talking about reparations and other different things. I don't think that the African American community at large really fights for reparations because they keep saying that they can't prove it or whatever. There's no way to really see how much is really owed to the Black
Yeah, I
population
don't think it's going to ever happen, but
Yeah.
or who would get it. And I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily true, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But
Right.
Yeah.
do know that we, as a people, we need to like really start to band together more as far
yeah,
as
definitely.
helping to keep ourselves afloat and getting more of a community mindset. Um, I feel like churches help us to do that, and other avenues help us to do that. And I feel like within our body, we do a lot to help further each other. But there are all sorts of ways to do that. Just keep in mind, of how you spend your money and how you
Yes.
think of the future. Think of
Yes.
if your family didn't give you an inheritance, maybe you need to start doing what you need to do to think about your kids so you can give them an inheritance and whatnot, and help to build the wealth as it goes along. It might have to start at you. You might have to be the one to sacrifice certain
Yeah,
things for yourself so
that's
that your
That's
family
fact.
can start to build on something and you build a legacy for your
Fact.
family. So
yeah,
it's important. It's important
Yeah.
because we are not these we're not these weak poor people, that and illiterate and we're not that people. We know
That's
how to do
right.
what we need to do.
that's right.
We
We
know that certain
strong.
things we know that certain things weren't there or weren't available for us in the past, and there are certain things that still might happen, but we know how to maneuver and make things happen for ourselves.
Yes.
So,
That's right.
Yes.
anyone have any anyone have any other closing things to say?
I
No,
just want
just
to say, just invest in your children early, as
Yes,
early
mhm,
as possible. Like, don't skip out on your babies either.
Mm,
That's all.
absolutely.
amen. That's the truth.
for sure.
All right, guys. Well, we want to thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time on the Roundup.
Bye,
Take care, guys.
guys.
Happy Black History Month.
Happy
Hey.
Black History Month. Yes.
Yes, February is the best
Take
month
care.
ever. Believe that.
All right, guys. Take care.